Happy Monday and welcome back to Mystery of Money. My name's Nick and this is the channel where we talk about all things financial. Do me a favor, hit that like button to let me know that people are actually watching these videos and getting some value out of it. So I titled this video, Why I Can't Apply for PPP Forgiveness Because of the EIDL Loan. So in previous videos, which I'll link here, I discussed the reasons why I might not want to apply for the PPP forgiveness right away and the fact that Congress still has not come out with any type of guidance for the banks or borrowers when it comes to the forgiveness portion of the PPP. Basically, I keep being told that through the bank to apply, that the portal will be opened eventually, and that they're still waiting for further guidance. I know some places have started to accept applications. I know in QuickBooks, when I go into QuickBooks and log in, it says apply for your PPP loan. Now, I don't know if that means that you can also apply for forgiveness. I know every time I go in, it's new information on how I can qualify for more PPP or how my records and things like that. But I have not heard or seen anyone get forgiven for these loans yet. I've heard talk about it, but I haven't seen it firsthand or heard about it firsthand. Now, the reason why I can't apply for forgiveness, or I should say, I don't know if I can or if I want to, is because I received the $1,000 per employee from the EIDL program. Now, if you look at the documentation for the CARES Act and the PPP and the EIDL, it states that if you received the advance portion and or grant from the SBA, that you are required to pay that back out of the PPP portion of the loan. Thus, it would not be forgiven. Now, where that gets convoluted is the fact that while I hope that eventually Congress will pass and give the additional up to the $10,000 to the small businesses that they required or talked about, and in the CARES Act, the law states, if they do that, that means that less of my PPP will now be forgiven, which means I'll have more that I have to pay back. Now, I've seen other videos on YouTube that talk about the differences and the fact of the language and how these lawsuits are happening in states like Florida, where they're suing the SBA to potentially get the full grant or the full $10,000 advance, and the SBA lawyers are coming back and saying, well, no, now you have to pay back. The advance was portion of the loan, so now you have to pay back that if you got the loan. Now, in my case, I got the advance, but had I known that the advance would have been portions of the loan, I would have got a higher EIDL loan. Now, I have applied for reconsideration to bump that loan amount up, mainly because revenues were still dropping and still had decreased over the last couple months. They have started to stabilize out and increase back up. But again, we're in the middle of September from March. Now, I guess there are two outcomes to this situation that I guess I'm hopeful either one would be resolved. If the next stimulus package includes the $10,000 advance and bumps that up from the $1,000 per employee to the $10,000, the language in which the CARES Act was written states that that is an advance, it does not need to be paid back. Well, then the language in the PPP contradicts that. I'm hoping that there's clarification either way when the final bill comes out, or whatever bills are being proposed, like S.4227, where they advance, the full $10,000 to all small businesses that legitimately should have gotten it, and or they go back and disqualify the payback of the PPP portion. Because if you look at the two separate programs, they were not meant to be used for the same thing. PPP was strictly to be used for payroll for the 8-week or 24-week covered period in which it was originally passed. The EIDL program, or EIDL, was meant to be used for working capital expenses to help your business while your revenues dropped off. They were two separate uses. Now, you could, in theory, use the EIDL to pay payroll, fully knowing that that money will need to be repaid back as a loan, versus the PPP that has the potential to be forgiven. Now, where it gets kind of tricky is the fact that if the lawyers are talking that that is part of the loan and needs to be repaid back, and the PPP was meant to refinance the EIDL portion, then are you technically being double dipped? Let's say your business got an EIDL grant for $5,000. It's legitimately has to pay out of the PPP portion that's not forgiven, so you will have a $5,000 loan from your institution once the rest of your PPP is forgiven, you will have a $5,000 loan that you need to pay back over 2 years at 1%. Now, if they're saying you have to pay the portion of the EIDL back, so you have one bucket over here for the SBA that says the $5,000 that has to be paid back, you have the $5,000 over here at the PPP that wasn't forgiven. Is that technically $10,000 that you now have to pay back out of any of the money that you received from the SBA or from your bank? Those are just some of the questions that are surrounding both of these programs. And I know I have customers and I have other businesses that are in the same predicament in the fact that they're waiting for any guidance. A lot of this programs, other than the EIDL program that has been around for a long period of time, the PPP was brand new. It just got rolled out, and it sounded like a great idea when it was first presented, and it was a good idea to inject cash into these businesses so they could pay employees, and it didn't put a strain on the unemployment system and whatever other logic that they came about to do it. It made total sense at the time. But I don't think anyone sat back and thought logistically how we're going to, one, monitor, how we're going to regulate, and how we're going to make sure that this program does what it was intended to do. The other caveat that's happening now, and I find, is if originally the SBA put a 6-month period of payback on these loans. So after 6 months, if it wasn't forgiven, you needed to start repaying the loans. I have to look at my original note that came with my PPP money to see when that date is. Because if I theoretically receive my money in March, you get April, May, June, July, August, September. So is my loan payment now due in September? Or did they change the laws or change the rules and extend that out? Because if not, I've seen a lot of large PPP loans that are going to have huge payments coming due soon. And that in itself causes more problems, because once you make that payment, now they have to refund it back should you get it forgiven. So in the grand scheme of things, I'm really hoping over the next few weeks that we have in September that Congress can somehow come together and get a consensus on these programs and lay them out as to where they make sense and help the most amount of people. Because if not, I think there's going to be a huge train wreck coming in October, November, December, when these loans will start to be matured and have to be paid back. So I guess best case scenario, if they don't do anything and pass the consensus, is that they extend the time periods. And now they say instead of the 6 months, you have 1 year, or you have 18 months to be able to apply for forgiveness and receive it without any payments. Now your interest will still accrue just like it does now on any portion that you didn't get forgiven. But at least it would give the businesses kind of a way to step back and say, okay, I don't have to necessarily worry about this money right now. I have to get all my ducks in a row to make sure that I can apply for forgiveness and I have all the documentations that's fair and ready, but I don't have to worry about it every single day on that countdown until those payments are due. So I hope you got a lot of value out of this video, and if you want more videos like this, hit that subscribe button below and you can learn about all sorts of financial topics that I talk about. Until next time, have a great day.